I was 19 stone, dangerously bloated, clinically obese, and working in McDonald's. I was going nowhere, slowly. I didn't know it, but I was also just hours away from the moment that would change my life, that would propel me towards the Olympics only 4 years later. An Olympic cycle that began, in all places, at a burger joint inside Victoria train station, amid the everyday grind and greyness of inner-city London, and which would end in Rio de Janeiro, somewhere between Copacabana Beach and Christ the Redeemer, and surrounded by the world's greatest athletes. On the way to my shift at McDonald's, I couldn't have predicted that I was about to start my crazy transition from obesity to the Olympics. How could I have foreseen that when my worldview was framed by the golden arches, and when the closest thing I had to a mentor was Ronald McDonald, and when my boss had just heavily scolded me for turning up only a minute late, which really put a dampener on my mood and my day. If I had ambitions that morning, they weren't to represent Great Britain at the 2016 Olympic Games, and to go on to become a professional boxer. If I aspired to anything, it was to one day become a manager at McDonald's. But after just a year of working there, even that seemed like a distant dream. My days were measured out in burgers, fries, milkshakes and Happy Meals. The ones I served and the ones I put aside for myself. When I wasn't working at McDonald's, I was eating in McDonald's several times a day. In between the Big Macs, I was binging on bags of Haribo sweets, sugar hit after sugar hit. I was eating as much junk as I could, and I was eating it as quickly as I could. All that fast food was slowing me down. I'd never been much of an athlete at school. I was never picked for any teams, and I certainly didn't win any races. Age 19, I couldn't even shuffle a quarter of the way around the local park before my body, swollen and clogged with fat, screamed at me to stop. That was hell on earth. I had always been big as a child, but this was the heaviest I'd ever been. Even at 6'5", 19 stone was massively overweight, with my doctor warning me I was obese. I was already sluggish with knee pain because of my weight, and with the way I was eating, I was only going to get heavier. How long before I couldn't even make it a quarter of the way around the park? I'm not going to say I was broken, but I wasn't happy either. Happy wasn't on the horizon. Happy was just a word on the polystyrene box that the kids' meals came in. I'd grown up in Hackney, a part of London where I wasn't expected to do much or to become much. But there was a small, persistent voice in my head, wondering whether there was more to life than being shouted at by impatient rush hour customers who had trains to catch. Where's my burger? Come on, give me my chips. That was the soundtrack to my life. All around me, people were going places, to work, school, university. While everyone else was getting on with their lives, I felt stuck. I had a feeling that I needed to push on with my life and to make something of myself, but I hadn't yet discovered what that was or who I wanted to be. I say it was a moment that changed my life, but actually my epiphany at McDonald's lasted a little longer than that. 9 minutes split into 3 rounds of 3 minutes each. It was mid-August, a warm, sun-bleached Sunday, the final day of the 2012 London Olympics. And I was on a break with an hour to kill. The television in the break room, which was tuned to the BBC, happened to be showing a fight. Live pictures from Anthony Joshua's gold medal fight in the super heavyweight division. Looking back now, it's crazy to think my life turned on when I took a break that day. If I had walked into that room just a few minutes later, I would have missed the fight. Perhaps I might have later seen a headline in the newspaper, or a short clip online or on the news, but then I wouldn't have experienced the emotions I had felt during that fight. My adrenaline wouldn't have spiked, and I wouldn't have felt such joy. I now call him AJ, but back then I knew him in name only. It was a close fight which could have gone either way, with AJ coming through lots of adversity to beat the defending champion, an Italian boxer called Roberto Camarel. More than anything else I'd seen in my life, that fight spoke to me, and it spoke with urgency and clarity.